So enough of that. The next thing that pops up is a relative newcomer. It's only 1,500 years old, give or take a few. And that was a fraud scheme that was promoted by the Emperor Justinian and his wife Theodosia. And basically this scheme depended upon ignorance, and that was whether or not you could actually read or speak Latin versus whether or not you would accept a falsification of Latin known as dog Latin that was improper grammar that reduced to nothing but gibberish. And so since it reduced to nothing but gibberish, any contract written in dog Latin was invalidated. And that very conveniently gave them a means of defrauding people based on whether or not they had a knowledge of Latin or not. And so they basically had a system that identified who was dumb and who was smart, who was educated and who was not, who was high class and who wasn't. And that then gave rise to an entire caste system that still predominates society in some countries today, including England. The premise was that the ancient Romans, the patriarchs, were set apart and their names were always written in all small letters. And indentured servants, people that were in bondage because of debts and that sort of thing, their names were written in upper and lower case. And people who had been reduced to slavery, had been sold into slavery, were denoted by having their names written in all capitals without any hyphens. Mm. Latin requires hyphens. Mm. But if you try to mix languages using the Latin form and then casting it into English, so that, like PARSE, Russell Gould's thing, okay, you've got all of these words written in all capitals with hyphens between them as if they were Latin, but they're in English, which results in gibberish again. You can't combine languages and grammars like that and hope to come up with anything but some sort of new language, which indeed is what David Wynne Miller and Russell J. Gould did, was to come up with a new language, a hybrid language similar to dog Latin. And now they're trying to pass off this copyrighted and patented language as something that our contractors should use. And they don't have a contract for that. Our language is still good old official English. And you know, they're just basically trying to strong arm a contract to act as our territorial service suppliers. And they're doing that through the Office of Military Settlements, which is also improper and incorrect, of the United Nations. So they're connected to the UN side of the United Nations bid to take over the entire world and distribute wealth however they see fit, and basically to cut America up into something like a giant wheel of cheese. And
this is the UN corporation, right?
Yes. Their Office of Military Settlements. And they should have settled a long time ago. They should have given back all of the purloined property that the Office of the Alien Property Custodian stole and purloined. All that was set aside to Sesticate trusts by the Roman Catholic Church, and all the rest of the loot and booty that they carried out of here, it should have all been returned to us if they had any sense of decency or uprightness or any intention to do what is right. They should have long ago returned all of our property to us. They should have long ago explained the situation coming out of the Civil War. They should have long ago helped us to do our election process to resolve those problems. They should not have done hardly anything that they have done since 1860. So all of these people are on the ropes in terms of what they have done, which is criminal. And they're also on the ropes in terms of what they haven't done, because the sins against us are both sins of omission and outright crimes that have been committed against us by employees under service contract, and also breach of trust by the principals involved. So the situation with PARSE and Russell Gould is looking more and more like a UN setup, and more like a military collusion. And one of the things that you have to be aware of is that we've been supporting the expenses of 2 world-spanning public employee governments. Mm-hmm. We have been supporting both the territorial government, which has proliferated far beyond the borders of this country, and the Commonwealth government that has, well, yes, Commonwealth, but the municipal Commonwealth government that has spread far beyond the borders of this country. And both have been cancer-like in that they have been competing with each other. They've been fomenting all sorts of fraud schemes. They've been running worldwide drug trades, pharmaceutical controls, illegal actions like we've just seen this week with, trying to legislate seizure of DNA that belongs to private individuals who take COVID tests. All sorts of outrageous criminal activity being pursued by these corporations. And they seem to think that they can just continue to do this ad infinitum and nobody is going to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. So,
well, and you've also called out the PARSE syntax as being false. And
well, it is. I mean, you can't tell the difference between a pickle and a cucumber in PARSE syntax.
Many people use it, and it's probably a good idea for them to rethink that because, they're associating themselves with fraud.
Right, they're associating themselves with fraud, and they're also using a copyrighted system which obligates them.
So
if you use his system, then you owe him whatever you produce in that system.
Yeah.
Now my husband did create a way for us to regain control of our names in the PARSE syntax.
Okay.
And that is simply to write your entire name with hyphens between each name. And he copyrighted that as a separate language.
Okay. So if we do that,
if by God forbid that you have to use something like that ever in the future, you have something to fall back on. You have a form of name that's been claimed for you by the land postmaster.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I hope everybody takes note. If you're using PARSE syntax, please stop. And if you do get stuck, use the remedy that has been provided.